So yesterday, RFK Jr. making it official, moving out of the Democratic primary and into a run as an independent. He gave a big speech in Philadelphia. Let's take a listen to a little bit of that.
At hotels and malls on the street, and they remind me that this country is ready for a history-making change. They are ready to reclaim their freedom, their independence. And
I saw that and I thought, is that an assassin?
And that's why I'm here today. I'm here to declare myself an independent candidate.
So there you go. As I said, making it official. Independent run, doesn't look like he's going to affiliate with any party, not the Democrats, not the Republicans, also not like the Libertarians or another third party, fully independent. Difficult to get ballot access, et cetera, but he does have a good amount of money behind him. So if anyone could pull off a lot of ballot access in a number of states, I think he would be, a person who would be well positioned to do it. He's also got a decent level of support and certainly a significant following online and elsewhere. One thing that has been very funny about this, though, is up to this moment, a lot of Republicans, especially a lot of MAGA Republicans, loving RFK Jr. They wanted to hear everything he had to say about vaccines, about Fauci. His latest book was about, anti-Dr. Fauci. Wanted to hear everything he had to say about like online censorship and misinformation. Wanted to hear everything he had to say about Ukraine. Now they're feeling a little bit different now that he's running as an independent and not against Joe Biden, because there are some indication, we'll get into this in a minute, that he may take more votes from Donald Trump than he does from Joe Biden. So put this reaction up on the screen. This is from GOP chairwoman Ronna McDaniel. She says, RFK Jr. cannot hide from his record of endorsing Hillary, supporting the Green New Deal, fighting against the Keystone Pipeline, and praising AOC's tax hikes. He is your typical liberal, and voters will not be fooled. And this is an official RNC statement in the same direction. Actually put up on the screen I think it's the last element we have in this block, which shows you the way that Trump was talking about him very recently as well. He was praising RFK as a common sense guy. He said this is on a radio show. He's a common sense guy, so am I. So whether you're conservative or liberal, common sense is common sense. A lot of what I run on is common sense. He's doing really well. I saw a poll, he's at 22. That's pretty good. That's pretty good. Doing very well. So obviously a bit of a shift in the vibes towards RFK Jr. coming from the right at this point, Saagar.
Big time shift that we are seeing there. And yeah, I mean, look, I said it last time. I think independent is going to be a tough gig. As you said, if anybody could do it, it definitely could be him. Getting on the state and getting on the ballot in all 50 states is absolutely no joke. Otherwise, you have to rely on write-in. At this point, I mean, RFK Jr. has said himself, I take more votes than I do from Trump. He has also had that campaign insider that leaked to media. We're going to fuck Trump is what they said. So, I mean, maybe that's their goal, or maybe they just don't care because he wants to be able to get his message out there. Honestly, I think that probably is it. I think that he has achieved. This is the pinnacle, really, of any of his public profile that he's ever had. He's sold millions of the real Anthony Fauci. He's been able to be on every podcast that would have him. He's become, I wouldn't say he's a household name yet, but I mean, he's definitely dramatically increased his profile and increased his profile specifically on visibility on issues that he cares a lot about. So honestly, it's probably, that's most people get into this business, the independent run business, specifically to do that. You look at a guy like Cornel West. I mean, Cornel West, at this point, he switched from Peoples to Green, and now he's independent, like RFK Jr. The reason is that Cornel West cares deeply about ending the war in Ukraine and about some racial justice issues, which he uses his platform and his campaign to highlight. So from that point, I honestly do think it is a success, really, on both of their parts. They're also, though, media really highlighting some of his siblings that we have here. Let's put this up there on the screen. They long have differed very much from RFK Jr. Some of his literal own siblings said, Bobby might share the same name as our father, but he does not share the same values, vision, or judgment. Today's announcement is saddening for us. We denounce his candidacy. We believe it to be perilous for our country. Not the first time that they have done something like that.
This is very difficult for them to do, though. You know, to go against their own brother in such a public way, like I think that's a very difficult thing for them
me
to be able to come
personally,
out and do.
I don't, my sister could do anything. It's not going to happen, and I would hope vice versa. I don't know. I think that's like a horrific and tremendous betrayal, personally. But however, they could do what they want. It's a complicated family. Who knows how close that they all are. This is irrespective of his own views or whatever.
Yeah.
I do think it is interesting that CPAC is still scheduled to have him speak. Let's put this up there on the screen. They announced that RFK Jr., Vivek Ramaswamy, and quote, other key influencers will speak at the CPAC Investor Summit. Here's what Matt Schlapp specifically had to say. Robert F. Kennedy Jr. has a unique voice in advocating for the defunding of the weaponized bureaucracy, ensuring the constitutional right of medical freedom. Kennedy has joined such an important event in a reflection of the splintering left-wing coalition that has gone full woke Marxist to the point that traditional liberals don't feel welcome anymore. The breakup of the left-wing coalition is occurring while the conservative coalition has the hopes of adding more blacks and Hispanics who reject gender insanity, the effects of the terrible economy, and the destruction of their once safer neighborhoods, Matt Schlapp, chairman of CPAC, stated. Now, the reason why I think that is so fascinating is that CPAC wants to have him on. And honestly, they even announced it ahead of his independent run.
Yeah.
But the RNC is like, no, he's a traditional liberal. And I said last time around that I specifically saw one MAGA influencer who was like, very honest. He was like, I elevated RFK Jr. because he was a useful cudgel against Biden. But now I think he's going to take more votes away from Trump. So I'm going to start elevating all the terrible, like, liberal beliefs that the guy has. And, you know, I mean, it's kind of honest. So I think that's the phase that we're in now.
Oh.
Republicans are going to, at least
very clearly.
Republicans who care about the election are about to turn hardcore on RFK Jr.
Yeah, it feels like this CPAC description and invitation and whatever is from like a month ago.
I was thinking the same
Like,
thing.
I think if this event was happening a month in the future and invites had been sent out, you know, a month from now, I don't think he would be on the list. They certainly would not be like highlighting him and propping him up in this particular way, because CPAC is very closely associated with like just the mainstream of the Republican Party. And Matt Schlapp has been a big Trump booster and all of that stuff. So yeah, this feels like it's a little bit out of date. And I even saw in the post on Twitter underneath of this, all of the replies were like, he's just a liberal and he voted for Hillary and blah, blah, blah. So already the message has gone out and the view of RFK Jr. among the Republican base has really shifted, which begs an important question, which is, you know, Donald Trump in particular has so much sway with the Republican base that now that he's very clearly turning on RFK, and we have a piece here, the one from Semaphore, guys. This is D6. Go ahead and put D6 up on the screen. They have a report that says Team Trump readies attacks on RFK Jr. And I think we've got a quote here too that is pretty explicit how they're going to go about this. They say, we're going to be dropping napalm after napalm on his head, reminding the public of his very liberal views dating back to 2012. We have a lot of stuff on him. So that's how Trump world is thinking about this. And I just have to think that the view of him among Republicans is set to totally flip because, you know, Tucker Carlson really liked him. Steve Bannon really liked him. He went on all of these like right-leaning or right-coded podcasts and talked about the issues where they had a lot of agreement and didn't talk about any of the issues where either now or in the past he might have some disagreement. So I wonder if that's going to change how he's viewed among the electorate and who he's going to actually perform well with in terms of a general election. So this is why I've always been skeptical of the certainty that he would take more votes away from Trump than away from Biden, because for one thing, Trump support is way more locked in. Biden support is way more squishy. For another thing, he's a Kennedy. The name is just really automatically associated with the Democratic Party. And for the last thing, Republicans are great when they decide to like rip someone apart and, you know, brand them as a traitor and someone who's anathema to their base. And that's the process that he's entered right now. So, so in any case, it's still not clear to me how the Kennedy vote will shake down. And I saw a poll that recently had him in there in like a three-way. He's getting a significant percentage of the vote, But in terms of when people actually go to the ballot box, it usually ends up being a lot less significant than what they're telling pollsters in advance.
Yes, that's a great point. Some of the attacks that they're writing are very funny. Quote, "We are going to be dropping napalm after napalm on his head, reminding the public of his liberal views dating back to 2012. Quote, "We have a lot of stuff on him." They previewed one Daily Caller story that was just published. It says, RFK Jr. once said farmers were worse than bin Laden months after 9/11. To be clear, he was
I'm gonna guess
referring
that's out of
to
context.
factory meat integrators are more threatening to democracy than Osama bin Laden. He's a longtime
I mean,
environmentalist.
the Hillary-
Personally, I would not have said it.
The Hillary
but,
vote
like,
is a tough one.
Oh, Hillary's
The Hillary
that's the headshot.
endorsement
Right.
and vote is a tough one. And, you know, if you get that out widely to the Republican base and people who are like right-leaning, how do you think they're going to feel
Also
about
on
him?
Trump. I mean, even on our show, I'd have to go back and to watch the clip. But I remember we asked him about Trump, and he's like, "No, I disagree with Trump on plenty of
He's
things." You're
not a
not
Trump-
allowed to
he's
say
not a
that.
Trump guy.
Yeah, you're not allowed to say that whenever you are somebody who's supposed to be appealing to Republicans. That said, you know, look, there's maybe an independent-ish group of people that are out there that may vote for him. So I don't know. I mean, I think about Oliver Anthony. I feel like that discourse is just so many lifetimes ago. But I listened to his podcast with Joe Rogan because
Yeah.
I was like, I want to hear about this guy and what he has to say. And he was like, well, you know, Trump did a lot of bad things too, like Operation Warp Speed. And I was like, oh, interesting. So you got Oliver Anthony here. By his own admission, he's not a two-party guy or whatever. But his only criticism main criticism he got right now of Trump, it was about Operation Warp Speed, the vaccine program.
Yeah.
And I was like, well, maybe there's people like him who will vote for RFK Jr. You know,
Okay.
there's a decent percentage of people who are
And
like that in
those
the
are
country.
people who would probably, if push came to shove,
Yes.
they would vote for Trump if it was just Trump v. Biden.
So then I'm like, okay, then I definitely do see the Trump spoiler, quote unquote, element to all of this and a very legitimate constituency. I don't know how big the constituency would be, maybe 6-7% or whatever of the country, but that's not nothing. I mean, Ross Perot was able to get 20. The question too comes to RFK Jr.'s strategy. Perot was able to get a huge chunk of the vote because he said a ton of money and he was able to buy big spots, and media was also different at that time with the monoculture, so a lot of people were forced to watch it. So I'd be curious to see how he gets his actual message out there from now.
Yeah.
For now, it's been podcasting. I think that was actually successful to get him to the point where he is, but I do think he's got to take it to another level. I don't know what that looks like though.
I mean, I do
Yeah.
think the core, I listened to some of his speech, read some of the transcript of
Yeah.
his speech. The core of his primary message is very popular.
Oh, of
it's
course.
anti-corruption.
Yeah, exactly.
And it's anti-Biden, it's anti-Trump, it's anti
Right.
the two parties. And that is very, like, if you look at the polls, it's very popular. There is a historic number of people who are interested in a third party, who are disgusted with the two choices that are on the ballot. And, you know, do I think that there's enough of an opportunity that RFK Jr. would be the next president? No, I don't think that. But if he's able to overcome some of the logistical hurdles, do I think that he has an opportunity to grab some portion of the electorate, some non-significant, some not insignificant
Yeah.
portion of the electorate? Yeah, I absolutely do, because I think the fact that you have him, you have Cornel West, you may have this like no labels corporate candidate who's like, neither one is slavish enough to Wall Street out there as well. I think these are all signs of just the level of dissatisfaction that you have in the population about, really, Trump versus Biden again? Really? Like, I don't want either of these dudes. Give me something else. And so while the, electoral landscape still is what it is in terms of first past the post and no ranked choice voting and the structural barriers to get on the ballot, I mean, those are all still probably insurmountable obstacles to any viable third-party candidate. The fact that you have so many candidates who are well-known and have some funding behind them jumping into this thing, I do think is a real sign of just how disgusted Americans are with their total lack of real democratic choice, either on the Republican or the Democratic side.
I think you're very right, Krystal.
Hey guys, if you like that video, go to breakingpoints.com, become a premium subscriber, and help us build the best independent media organization on the planet.
That's right. We're subscriber funded. We're building something new. We want to replace these failing mainstream media organizations.
So again, to subscribe, it's breakingpoints.com.